We try to create experiences for our customers and our consumers. But there are times in our lives where experiences are created for us.
Hey, dog.
Hey, Elise, how are you?
You think about the major events in our lives, there's always an amazing food experience tied to it.
Good morning.
It's what brings people together. And that's where people get to share their beliefs about who they are and what they stand for. There are neighbors, there are friends, different cities, different communities.
You know, when we come together, we can make a better world.
A whirlwind of a person who's not going to take no for an answer.
There was only one greatest generation, and, I admire those guys so much.
I was truly amazed at how kind the world could be.
These are stories that absolutely have to be told.
I think it's something that we really need.
It's about what we can do for others. That's powerful.
So in the business world, we think of entrepreneurs as people who take huge risks to transform an innovative idea into a legitimate company. But there's a subset of entrepreneurs who stand apart from the rest. They're often called change makers, and they have a higher purpose to serve others by creating social change in a world through their businesses. I'm pleased to be joined by Grace Umutesi, who's planning on becoming one of those change makers and is the star of today's film. Grace was born in Rwanda in the early 1990s during a time of civil war and genocide. I won't share too much of her story now. I'm going to leave that to the film. But what I will say is Grace's difficult beginnings are what drive her ambitions today. I'm also joined by Justin Gold, founder of Justin's, and Penny Andino, who's vice president of marketing at the company. Justin is also one of those socially minded entrepreneurs, those change makers, whose business is now part of the Hormel Foods family. Justin and Penny had the chance to host Grace as an intern at their offices in Boulder, Colorado in the summer of 2018. Dave Monroe, one of the filmmakers on this project, is also with us. I'm Ethan Waters, a journalist who often works with Hormel on stories like this one. I'm looking forward to our panel discussion, but first, I'm very proud to present the premiere of There's Something About Grace.
When she first came here and we started working together, I was a little nervous. What have I done? I brought on a girl who I don't even know, coming from Costa Rica, who lives in Rwanda, who wants to start a peanut butter company, and she doesn't really know anything about the industry. And have I bitten off a little more than I could chew here? And the spirit of today isn't to have Grace perform this flawless, well-rehearsed presentation. We're her rehearsal, because some days she may need to present this to people who can really have an impact to help her get her business going. So it's an opportunity for her to share with you what she's learned over the past 3 months.
My idea is that I want to feed people, and you're going to understand in a few minutes why do I really want to feed people.
It was really serendipitous. Me and my family were vacationing in Costa Rica. My wife and I every morning would go for a run on the beach. And running the other way is this guy who looks vaguely familiar, but I'm like, that looks like Will Paradise. And we passed the guy and I'm running. I'm like, that's Will Paradise. And Will Paradise is the former president of the Whole Foods Rocky Mountain region.
This is my host family's house, and this is where I've been staying while doing my internship. So, hi.
And so I see Will Paradise running by, who lives in Boulder, and we're in Costa Rica.
Then 3 weeks later, we meet Grace, and she tells us her story, and then she says, well, I want to start a peanut butter company. Do you know anybody in peanuts? Like, well, as a matter of fact, we do know someone.
So first I'm like, well, let me meet this young lady. So Grace and I set up a Skype conversation, and immediately I knew she was special.
I was born in 1994, which is the year that Rwanda experienced horrible genocide against Tutsi. With my auntie and mother, we're trying to go to Burundi, and my mother, after giving birth, nothing at all to eat, and so she passed away. I was just 2 days, but I was lucky enough that my auntie was there. She held me and took care of me. Seeing this life that I'm growing up in, I suffered a lot. I've spent days and nights not eating. That's how the passion came to become an agent of change, try to do something that will create a positive impact to my community. This is my aunt, my hero. She tells me that I look like my mom, her sister. So anytime she sees me, she remembers her sister. Yeah, I just miss her.
We've never done an internship that encompasses all departments. And so I knew that if this was going to happen, it had to be me. Because to me, this wasn't an academic experiment. This was an opportunity for someone to start a business that can change lives. And so it's like, all right, Grace, we're going to write a business plan. Your goal and what you'll be evaluated on is creating a plan. And this plan isn't for a grade. This plan is to change your life and to change other people's lives.
People and make sure that coming back to Rwanda after that, there's just distractions of everything, and it's just too much anger of what happened. And it's not easy, to see somebody who killed your parents, your family, and be like, yes, I forgive you, and we have to move forward. Thanks to everybody in the house. I don't want to hold this anger, but I want to be a change maker, somebody who could bring a positive impact instead of going back to what happened. When we come together, we can make a better world, regardless of who we are and where we come from. So thank you so much for everybody. I really appreciate.
She came here to learn how to make a product, and she's going to leave here knowing how to start a business. To make you official part of our company, a Justin's vest. This makes you an official part. Here, put it on. You're an official member of the Justin's team. That's perfect. I'm so proud of you. It fits. This young lady has every reason to be bitter, to be a little angry, to be a chip on her shoulder, to really want to get back at a world that's been really challenging to her, and she doesn't have any of that in her. She wants to continue to pay it forward and continue to inspire positivity with grace and humility.
My mom gave that name before she passed away. I'm so grateful that I have that name, to be honest. I feel like I live by grace, and she keeps telling me, grace will always follow you.
Grace, that's a beautiful film and a remarkable story, David. It's a great film. Grace, good to see you. How are you? Where are you?
Thank you so much. I am in Costa Rica, and I'm so happy to be part of this incredible team. Such a big pleasure and honor.
How did it feel just when you first saw the film, seeing yourself on the screen? Did you realize you light up the screen like you do?
Yeah, of course I did. I was like, oh my God, did I do all this? I was just like, ooh, I can't believe it. And time flies. Yeah, it was beautiful. And it also reminds me to keep working hard and make sure that everything that I displayed on the film has to come true and be a change maker, not only in words, but also put it in actions. Yeah.
You got to go back to Rwanda after that film was made. How are things in your home country?
Well, it was like 3 years after not going back home. So when I went back home, I saw a lot of changes that have already been made. I mean, in terms of development, the country had already changed a lot. And that gave me courage to, move working on what I was working on, because Rwanda is now a country that motivates women entrepreneurs, and I'm part of them. So looking at that, talking to the people and seeing what is happening around the country, it really, gave me reasons to pursue my dream and my goals to do something very positive in my country, since the government itself is very supportive, and already got a very supportive team at Justin's where I did my internship. And so it was all a bunch of, motivation to keep doing what I was doing. However, I still had to finish with school. So it was, going back home, it was very motivating, and it just pushed me to keep the idea bright and see how I could make sure that this goes in place.
Right.
Yeah.
Justin and Penny, I'm just thinking back about the internship and having Grace in your lives for that period of time. What was the impact? What are your fond memories of that of that relationship?
I think some of my favorite memories are, number one, just how maternal Grace is. She has a big heart and she loves children. And so she was wonderful at interacting with my kids. And in fact, she would like chase them around the house, give me a hug, which was really cute and fun. And then I remember doing a lot of hikes with her and seeing Grace interact with snow was really fun. And she would wear like 5 layers of every down jacket that we had. When we would, because she came straight from Costa Rica, and she came in the fall, entering winter at really high elevation. And her sense of curiosity and her sense of adventure and her sense of just kind of, trying new things and experiencing new parts of the world, which is, for a young lady her age, is really admirable.
Yeah, I remember, Grace's time with us at Justin's was just really special. It really lifted everyone outside of their day-to-day. I mean, part of being in this natural foods community is about helping others and helping people through food. And this was just a really unique opportunity for us to get outside our United States purview and help someone in a completely different way. I remember Grace came with us to an industry event that was all about entrepreneurs pitching their business plans and pitching their business and their ideas, and just kind of watching her take it all in and experience that was really unique. And she just, in general, just had this amazing charisma to her that really, I think, touched every person, even if they weren't working with her directly in the office. It was super special.
And David, I'm curious to ask you about the creation of the film, and as a filmmaker, how you approach a project like this, or how did it strike you, and how did it evolve in your mind to become this film?
Well, I think you can see just from looking at the way that Grace and Justin look at each other on the film that it really, I think a key insight was to foreground that relationship, that in a sense, it's almost a love story, a platonic love story. But I mean, there's such affection and admiration between those two that, I think that was so powerful, and we would have been fools not to just let that kind of lead the story. In terms of Grace's backstory, none of us can imagine what she had to overcome. But I think if we were to have dwelled on that too much, it's very well-trodden territory and kind of, risks moving into, I think, the way that a lot of people in the West see Africa mostly as this place of kind of catastrophe. And that's not what the story was about. It's about, I think that would have overshadowed Grace's accomplishments and just how far she's come. So, that's a catalyst, but that's all it is. It was a tricky story to tell because there are a lot of moving parts. She grew up in Rwanda. She went to school in Costa Rica. She met friends of Justin's who happened to be visiting in Costa Rica, and then Justin told them about this woman that wants to start a peanut butter company. So it's a lot of storylines to have to kind of weave together, and that's a lot to communicate in 5 minutes. So that's where Storycraft comes in, in terms of just, we do a lot of pre-interviewing so that we kind of know what the story is. So talking to them, considering we had only 2 days to shoot, helped us determine what we needed to shoot, what characters were important. And but there was a lot of racing around. I remember the last day trying to make sure that the sun didn't go down before we got up to the mountain and got those great, beautiful end of day shots of Grace in the car and her, just symbolically in the film, to see her on top, kind of looking out and having achieved all this, kind of really worked. And then I would also give a thanks to Hormel and the people we've worked with there, and Justin, of course, which was that, this film and the other ones we've done for the series, our assignment was just to make short documentaries about really extraordinary people. It wasn't to use these people's stories to make the brand seem great or anything. So, I mean, in that sense, we're not commercial directors, we're filmmakers. And so we just did what we do, which is to try and find the heart of a story and then just tell it faithfully. And Grace and Justin have huge hearts, so it was easy to find.
The storytelling difficulty in the story does have to do with the amazing amount of serendipity that happened to get to Justin's. And I'm wondering if, Justin, you think back on that, just all the little connections that would have to have happened for Grace to have come your way is sort of, it's kind of remarkable, but sort of gives you some sort of faith in, I don't know what, fate maybe, or that things happen the way they're sometimes supposed to happen in this world that's often very difficult. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting kind of deep here. I don't necessarily believe in fate. I believe that things happen and you have to be curious enough to keep things happening. And I think that, Grace is one of those people who, she has been lucky, but the reality is she really creates that luck. And, and I think back, for me to teach someone, what I've been able to do, and what is really fun for me, because I got a lot of help, and for me to pay it forward to the next person. But it's really fascinating because with Grace's business plan, it wasn't just about, learning how to sell a product or make a product. It was everything. And that's what made it's such a challenge. And the challenge for Grace and I was how you sell and go to market in the US is much different than in Africa, Costa Rica, anywhere. And so, how the type of licensing you need, the type of regulations there are with the government for food safety, that, how you bring product into your factory, how you get your product out of your factory, the food labeling laws, where to get jars. And we're trying to figure out, well, here's how you do it in the US, but how do you do it in another country? And so we were, Grace is asking her friends back in Rwanda who might know someone, and we're getting information. And well, in Costa Rica, they do it like this. And so it was really fun to kind of create this best case scenario. And what's fun about a plan is the work is partially completed, and she can always go back and pick it up and make edits and make changes, because a business plan is never finished. It's constantly evolving and changing. And it was just so much fun to kind of go through the exercise of, what my business would be like somewhere else. And I think there's a little irony too there, where, you're kind of growing your competitor, and hopefully Grace starts a nut butter business, and, it's Grace's and Justin's, at the top someday. And it could be a lot of fun.
Grace, has your plan evolved, especially since your trip back to Rwanda? Have you done more thinking about it? Is there major changes you've thought about, or?
Yeah, pretty much, yes. So when I worked at Justin's, when I interned there, it was more like a peanut butter company. But considering what I did at Earth University, it was more like agriculture involving. So I thought about how can I connect both peanut butter and also agriculture, you know? So I wanted to connect both and make sure that I involve all the systems and the skills that I learned in Costa Rica at Earth University. So my time after I left at Justin's was to see how can I incorporate everything that I learned and make sure that the business or the project becomes broad, like in a broad way. So when I went to Rwanda, I looked into like how do I register a company, what does it take to start, especially like to the young entrepreneur. What does it take to do everything? And I also involved one of my classmates that are Rwandese that also had the same passion with me, and I like incorporate them to be like the business partners, because I believe I can do this, but if it's a team, it can make like it can might become much better because we have different skills and we're both all from Rwanda. So that now it's a team of 3 people working together, and we all went to Earth University. We're all from Rwanda, and it's more fun right now. So what I did actually was I had a business plan that was complete, and I thank Justin so much because this was really so much messed up in my mind. And I had an idea, but there's 2 different things. You have an idea and you want to put it into like a piece of paper, present it really well. So that work was really, if it wasn't Justin, it was gonna be too much difficult. But he made my work so easy. He's been like very huge support to me, and he did this not just like a mentor, but he was more like a father to me. You don't do that, you do this, you can do this, you can believe in yourself. I remember going with him to the library, searching for the books how to write a business plan. We're just checking in the shelves to see if we find a book, and then we're reading, and then we are opening to check the books. It's been a long time since he went to the library and he's going back to see everything. And I'm like, well, I'm not sure how this works, but
it turns out a lot of things are now online.
Yeah. So it was really like, frustrating a little bit, but he was very patient with me, and he gives you room to learn, and he understands that everything is a step by step. That's how everybody gets to where they want to get. So
and here's what's crazy. Like English is Grace's 4th language, 3rd language. And so it's just like, and she's been in Costa Rica this whole time speaking Spanish, going to classes in Spanish, all her friends are speaking Spanish, and now she's speaking English. But when she goes back to Rwanda, it's her native language. And it's just like, and she's processing all this in her 3rd language and writing it out in her 3rd language. And so it's just crazy. It's amazing.
Yeah. So, when you have a very supportive team, it gives you courage to also work hard no matter what the situation, the conditions you are in. So I was in a very conducive and favorable environment that motivated me to do everything that I had to do. Boulder is a very beautiful place. I always liked going to work and coming back. So I really had fun. So when I went back to Costa Rica, now I wanted to look into like the practical part of the business. And what I want to do is involve people, community. So I wanted to work with local farmers. And so what we did with my team is to, take out a few of local farmers in the villages, in the communities where we all come from. So it's a team, 3 people. So we worked with them, told them what we want to do and how this is going to impact the entire community, not just us doing businesses. And so we took them, we used like the government farms, and we taught them like the basic skills of how do you grow a seed, and how do you water the plant when it doesn't have water, how do you make sure that you harvest, how do you do the post harvest. And also we came to the processing part, which is the part that I really learned at Justin's. So it was like the combination of different skills as an agronomist, because that's what I studied, but also take it to the business part of it. So we managed to work with more than like 400 local farmers in the communities where we come from, by giving them trainings, by teaching them, especially like the practical part in the farms. But we haven't managed to like to get the peanuts and get the machine and grind. You know, it was more like practices and making sure that people understand and work with people, so that by the time we get started, now they won't be lost. They'll be understanding what we're about to do. So it was more like community involving than like sitting down and edit the business plan. Now we went to the ground and we worked with people. So when I came back to Costa Rica, one of my team members was in Rwanda. So we were coordinating, having Skype meetings, and he was working with them, sending us pictures, telling him this is how we have to do things. So yeah, the business has been running, but not really like in practical. But yes, we're helping people. And recently, due to COVID-19, you know, people are stuck home, they didn't have what to do. So we're like, can we do something to help people in the community? So we came together, we contributed a little bit of money, and we donated food to people, because this is what I learned at Justin's. I remember part of my community work was to work with poor people in the villages that, you know, don't have enough food. So I was like, this is a very good idea to, you know, also incorporate to the place where I come from. So we buy like a little bit of, you know, some, we call it like posho, which is like maize flour, some sugar, some beans, which is a source of protein. And then we donated to some people, you know, the same people that we're working with. Now look at this person from Africa. They normally eat because they go out work in the farms and something. Now everybody's at home. They don't have what to eat. So we did like some contribution and donated some food to them, which was really, you know, helpful to them. I'm here, my team members in Rwanda, we're coordinating, trying to see how we can help them. So all those things, it's part of the like the business, you know, because what I learned at Justin, when you're doing a business, has to be community involving. That is something very special, because you know what, I always loved listening to Justin, how he started, and you know, also reading at the website all they do. Social change and community impact was part of the business, and I loved that. And I also, you know, looked at all the possible opportunity to make sure that I incorporate everything that I learned. So for the meantime, it was more like you know, doing some practicals with farmers in their farms, and also teach them that, you know, we could grow a seed and we could add value to it. We could process something very healthy and very important and very nutritious to our bodies, which is very important. So for the moment, that's what we've been doing. But I also got an opportunity to continue doing my studies. I'm gonna start my master's very soon in September. So I'm also gonna do like food science. So I would say I'm a food activist, and I want to go in that area and make sure that I really understand. You know, there's this part of doing internship and learning what people do, but there's also this part of going in school and learn the scientific part of it, the processing part. So that is why I wanted to, after getting the opportunity, and thanks to Justin, because the skills I learned from the internship, it really participated a lot in getting a master's program, because I presented what I did, and it really made sense to the school. They're like, we should have Grace come to our school.
Oh, that's excellent.
Cool.
Yeah. So definitely I'm gonna start my school, but I'm studying, but also cooperating something back home to see that after a while, after I'm ready and after everything is, I mean, in terms of education, now I can settle and make sure that, I have enough skills, enough education skills.
Where is the graduate program?
It is at Mississippi State University in the States.
Ow! Have you been to Mississippi before?
No.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Good for you.
That'll be your fifth language.
Oh, yeah.
That means you can come visit us again, Grace, if you're back in the US.
Yeah, thank you. Mm-hmm.
I think this is just like a shining example of why Grace is so special. Like the fact that it started from this need to help her community, and the fact that even now she hasn't fully started her company, but she's there making a difference in Rwanda, even though she's away from home. And just it makes my heart so happy to hear what she's doing, and that she was able to take away some of those learnings about helping others. And even though that was her mission to start, but how she's implemented some of those same principles into her work today.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned briefly COVID and the pandemic, but there are projections that the food crises that may come along here in the economic wake of it may, hit Africa particularly hard. So, which I imagine will both make your efforts there more important, but also in many ways more difficult because of the economic implications of that. So, I hope the very best for you on that.
Thank you.
Justin, it wasn't that long ago. You're still a young man. It wasn't that long ago that you were the upstart entrepreneur. In some ways, I feel like you still are, but you also clearly understood the necessity of becoming a mentor to another generation of people. And I feel like you're almost a vanguard generation of people that understood the importance of food production and food and social equity and the environment and health and so forth. And I'm curious, like, as you sort of embrace the new generation, if you have thoughts about what they're seeing or what they're going to achieve in the next iteration of the food industry.
Wow, that was definitely not on the pre-planned worksheet you gave me. No, I'm just kidding.
It's an easy question.
No, it's fascinating. Being in the food industry and going to all these trade shows and seeing these new food products, you ask yourself, like, how can we keep innovating, new products and where's the food industry going to go? And it's funny, like there's always room for improvement, and there's always new foods coming out and new trends coming out. And what I really admire a lot about the future generation of kids is they want a connection to their food, and they want that connection to be heartfelt, and they want the connection to be real. And so it's really fun when you see a generation of consumers of all this information at their fingertips and can really research, the health of the food, the sustainability of the food, the corporate integrity of the company they're buying the food from. And so I think that there's a lot of pressure on not only food systems, but food companies to evolve and to be better and to do better. And it's always been my belief that the consumers drive, all decisions. And the companies that will continue to thrive will be driven by the consumers that I personally think are going to seek out and want to support, because they know that they're not just buying a food product, they're buying into a system that's hopefully improving our communities and takes care of their coworkers and cares about sustainability and organics and our body's health. And that's what's so fun about the food industry, is we really have an opportunity to not only craft our bodies with the foods that we choose to make, but our communities by the people and organizations that we support, and also the world by the ingredients that we choose, that hopefully will leave have a smaller impact than more traditional ingredients. So I think that those things are to continue to evolve, and it's going to be really fun and fascinating to see where it goes. And and we're becoming more of a global society. It was really interesting before COVID, that everything was so global and so intertwined, and now it's all come straight back to local. So I'm really curious to see kind of the global implications on sharing and food systems and importing and exporting, and how that impacts our lives moving forward.
Penny and Justin, I'm curious that Grace has said she's learned a lot from you and from Justin's and been her time there. What any other lessons that you learned from her?
Yeah, I learned a
during
lot.
her period of time.
Yeah, I'd say it's mostly like, you know, no matter the hardships that you've endured in your life, you know, there's always room in your heart to be loving and to give in forgiveness and compassion. And it's just, you know, it's incredible. Like, you know, and so no matter the hardships that I endure or the things that are difficult for me, I know that there's always room to find a place in my heart for that person or for that, you know, leader or whatever, that, you know, there's just always room. And, you know, and Grace's heart is so big that it reminds me that, you know, there's always room in mine, and there isn't an excuse for me to not have room.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Justin said. It's just really, Grace has this attitude that, you know, I believe I tried to have, but I think I have it in a new way after meeting her, which is really about, you know, take the negative and make it a positive and use it as a force of change, right? Don't just sit back and, you know, get mad or frustrated about it. Do something about it, and, you know, just overcome and work to be better.
Dave, do you have any takeaways from the project now, looking back on it?
Well, I think Justin, you know, touched on the forgiveness, and I think that's probably what was most remarkable to me, was Grace's ability to move beyond, you know, something that that could define your life. I mean, in a very negative way, if you let it. I've had the privilege of making a film in South Africa where Nelson Mandela, you know, led his country out of a very dark time and really emphasized reconciliation over revenge. And you know, it's that same. It's what great leaders do. And so Grace has that same sort of giving spirit that really is the only thing that can make the world a better place. And I would say the same of Justin. I think that, and I think Penny touched on it, which is that, you know, it's not like these people don't have plenty to do. So to take something like this on and to recognize that it's not something extracurricular, it's actually kind of core to their values as a company, and that it can be this great learning experience and a way to create and even further deepen a culture that Justin has built in his company, that is about the company and about the product, but also about its place in the world, and you know, and how they can contribute to raising consciousness. And so you know, it was just super inspiring, and I'll take that with me.
You know, and I have to give credit to Hormel and the leadership, because they could have easily said, "You're doing what? There's no time for this. Like, we've got peanut butter to make, we've got numbers to hit," and everyone was extremely supportive, and to the point where, you know, Grace came with us to an almond butter manufacturing facility and got to see firsthand, you know, like these huge mechanized, like Grace and I are talking about hand grinding peanuts, you know, into little jars and, you know, filling them up. And she gets to go to this, you know, massive almond butter production facility. And Grace was just like, what is all my, you know, like she was, and her hairnet barely fit over her hair because she had big afros. It was awesome. And it was really like touching for Hormel to be like, okay, this is really important, and it's unorthodox, and it's not something that, we're set up to do as an organization, but let's find a way to make it work. And I really appreciated that and admired that.
So Justin, I imagine this mentorship relationship is not a one-off thing. It goes on over time. I imagine you and Grace will continue to keep in touch and support each other over the years. So that's the idea.
Yeah, Grace, she knows this. You know that I'm here when you're ready. And right now, she's got a lot of things that she wants to kind of check off her list. And when she's ready, I think it'd be a dream of mine. I think that for companies to import peanut butter to Africa to help feed the communities there, when peanuts grow really well there and food grows really well there, and we can create their own systems that help create economic opportunities for other people and nourish, and peanuts are such a great way to do that. That would be fantastic. And when she's ready, we'll be there.
Grace, it's such a pleasure to be part of this project, and we wish you the very best as things come down the line. And we hope the film itself is shared widely and inspires other people, because I think it's really a worthwhile story. We do have one announcement to make in honor of Grace and the Justin team and Hormel Foods. Hormel Foods is donating $5,000 to the Women's Venture Fund. This is a nonprofit that helps women to establish thriving businesses with funding and business development programs. And if anyone listening is interested in donating to this organization as well, please visit their website. It's womensventurefund.org. No spaces, just womensventurefund.org. And we really hope everyone tunes in tomorrow for the next installment of this unorthodox online film festival. It's the story of Chuck Baker's Table of Honor. Dave Monroe was also the filmmaker. We'll have his partner Scott Balacherek to visit with us tomorrow as well about that. We really hope you do not miss it. And for those who missed Grace's film at the beginning of our presentation, we're going to do one more encore presentation of There's Something About Grace. Thank you all very much.